All right. Hello and welcome to your NEWSMAX Daily for Wednesday, October the 9th, 2024. The 283rd day of the year with 83 days to go, and it's National Emergency Nurses Day. Created in Australia in 1989 to honor and appreciate the dedication and hard work of emergency nurses. Very, very special people who work under tremendous pressure to help people and save lives every single day. If that is you, kudos to you, and thank you for all that you do. Millions of Floridians now have evacuated the state as many more millions, including myself, await the arrival of Hurricane Milton. As of this morning, it's back up to a Category 5 storm with sustained winds of 165 miles per hour.
I could have stayed. I could have taken a chance. I know other people in my zone that aren't evacuating, but I thought, well, I'll just have a little staycation and play it safe and and hope my house is there when I get back.
Several major airports in Florida closed yesterday. The rest will be closing early today. Hurricane Milton is expected to make landfall sometime after midnight on Florida's west coast near Tampa, a city of more than 3 million people. The outer bands of the massive storm, though, will be impacting most of the state by later this afternoon. Many areas of Florida beyond the west coast are already seeing some rain and some wind pick up. Chris Salcedo spoke with Florida Congresswoman Paulina Luna, whose West Coast district is right in the path of Milton.
Congresswoman, it's good to see you and welcome. Your constituents are still recovering from the impact from Hurricane Helene. How are they holding up, number one, and how are preparations for Milton in your district going?
I think a lot of people, we had over 55,000 people that were impacted by Helene, and much of our barrier islands actually were completely ruined after Helene. So when we got word less than, 2 weeks later that another hurricane was coming through, and now this time, instead of being off the coast about 100 miles, basically directly at us, obviously nerve-wracking. There's a lot of people that have already evacuated. Thank goodness. They had mandatory evacuation zones A through C, and then also recommended everyone else leave. But, for us, we're tracking these updates, and it is nerve-wracking because if this hits Tampa Bay, if this hits Pinellas County, it's going to be absolutely catastrophic. And so even though it's projected to hit a little bit south of us now, I think in Sarasota region, that is still going to be an incredibly damaging and deadly storm surge. I think we're hearing up to now 15 feet in some areas. And so we're hoping, obviously, that this can just slow down. Obviously, we don't want to send it anywhere else. We just don't want it to hit us at this powerful magnitude. But it's obviously disheartening, especially right now after finding out that FEMA has spent over $1.01 billion on illegals.
Yeah, you know what? And you took me where I wanted to go, because when I was growing up, there were certain areas where politics didn't come into play. It was national security, it was the law, and it was disaster relief. So let's talk about FEMA. They're pushing back on criticism of the federal government's handling of the storm, saying criticizing your government is dangerous. Many in the storm zone would say the government's response is dangerous. What do you say?
I'd say if you want to see how it's properly done, look at what Governor DeSantis is actively doing in handling this like a champ, in comparison with what happened in North Carolina and North Carolina's response that they received from the Biden administration. Instead of sending in active duty military right away, they waited about a week to send almost 1,000 soldiers into recovery efforts. And by that time, people died. And the fact is that we have friends that are on the ground there currently. They said that they were sending out cadaver dogs to find people, and they weren't actually finding anyone. They're finding entrails left of people. And so this is not just happening in a war zone. It's happening in the United States. And it's really awful to know that our federal government, instead of, focusing on the relief efforts, has been giving that funding away. Then they double down on it. And now you're finding out that instead of focusing on actually assisting here, communities here in Florida, that Kamala Harris is choosing this time to fight with Governor DeSantis because she's trying to make this a political talking point. But there are people's lives on the lines, to include Democrats and independents that may have voted for her otherwise. And so I think that she's her own worst enemy. We see that even Biden has been critical about her response and says that he has no issues with communicating with Mayor Castor or Governor DeSantis. And so I'm hoping that people can just get back to really what's important here, and that's saving people's lives.
Yeah, Joe Biden actually praising Governor DeSantis, saying he's doing a, quote, good job in the storm response.
Chris Salcedo with Congresswoman Paulina Luna of Florida's 13th Congressional District near Tampa. This is Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas on ABC News.
We have got incident management assistant teams, urban search and rescue. Our Coast Guard has swift water rescue teams. We've got healthcare assessment and assistant teams. This is an all of government endeavor.
DHS Secretary Mayorkas. And let's not forget about our friends in North Carolina, where there is still complete devastation. Greta Van Susteren got an update from Reverend Franklin Graham, CEO of Samaritan's Purse, which is delivering a massive amount of resources to their home state of North Carolina. And then Rob Schmitt's interview with President Trump. Hang on.
This is a major storm, and there's going to do damage, and there may be loss of life. So I encourage people to pray. And of course, here in the mountains, we're hard at work, Greta. We've got helicopters. We've had over 13 flights today. We're going into, these are rural counties that we're going to fire stations and going to churches that have been cut off. And we've taken generators. We have over 2,500 generators that we've purchased. We have trucked one of these big fuel tankers, and we've been taking barrels of fuel, loading them in helicopters, and flying the generators and the fuel to these rural areas so that the local fire station or the local church can function. And then we have Starlinks that we've been taking out, helping set those up so that they have communications. We're going to have problems here in the mountains for some time, Greta, but people are coming back. I finally got my electricity back after 12 days of having it off, but it's back on, so thankful for that. But the people in the path of this storm, we're praying for them.
Reverend Franklin Graham on the record with Greta Van Susteren. That's 6 o'clock Eastern on Newsmax. His power was out for 12 days. Imagine. I'm sure, yes, he has a generator, but most people don't. If you missed it, Rob Schmitt spoke about the hurricane, FEMA, and a lot more with former President Donald Trump.
I want to ask you about these hurricanes. Biden today says that you and Republicans are lying about FEMA siphoning their funds to send it to the migrant crisis that this administration has created. What's your answer to that?
Well, he's paid billions of dollars. He's giving money away to illegal aliens, as you would say, or illegal migrants. You can call whatever you want. The name is the same. The people that come into our country illegally, many of them are murderers. Many of them are drug dealers and gang members. The crime rates all over the world are going down because their criminals are being dumped into our country at levels that nobody's ever seen before. Yeah. It's an absolute outrage what they've done to our country at the border and what they've done with respect to inflation and energy and stupid electric car mandates where everybody's going to have an electric car in a short period of time, and they don't want all electric cars. And by the way, electric cars are fine for a certain percentage of the market, but you have to have gasoline propelled cars. You have to have, I would say, hybrids are very good, and new things are coming out. Yeah. But it's just ridiculous. These people truly don't know what they're doing.
You know, Kamala was, I think, one of the biggest liabilities that they have is certainly immigration. She was skewered last night on 60 Minutes. Whitaker reminded viewers repeatedly that Kamala and Joe Biden created this crisis intentionally. Yeah. Let's take a listen to that.
Was it a mistake to loosen the immigration policies as much as you did?
It's a long-standing problem, and solutions are at hand.
What I was asking was it a mistake to kind of allow that flood to happen in the first place?
I think the policies that we have been proposing are about fixing a problem, not promoting a problem.
But the numbers did quadruple.
We need Congress to be able to act to actually fix the problem.
You know, I give credit to Bill Whitaker. I think he did a fantastic job with that interview and consistently calling out the things that most of the media doesn't call out.
I thought the interview was really fair. He wasn't like killer. The questions actually weren't hard, but she's got no answers on inflation. She's got no answers on immigration. I actually think that immigration may be a more important, in terms of an election, I think it's a more important. I think it's the border is a bigger thing than even the inflation, and the inflation is horrendous. But people don't want to see the last week the list of murderers, 13,099 murderers, people incarcerated for murder. Many of them killed more than one person. They're now in our country. We have no idea who they are. They don't even know who they are. But it's over 13,000 of them. The biggest drug dealers, the worst criminals all over the world are being dumped, not just South America, are being dumped into our country. By hundreds of thousands are in our country, and they're in our country now. And you look at Springfield, Ohio, you look at Aurora in Colorado, where the governor has no idea what to do. I mean, they're literally taking over cities, and other cities and towns, even if they haven't arrived yet, are just, I mean, they don't know what is going on. They are so scared. Yeah. They're so worried. And I actually think, Rob, that may be a bigger thing than even the horrible inflation that's, destroying our country.
Yeah. Well, and as stated, I mean, one of the biggest problems with inflation is housing prices. You want to know why housing prices keep going up? It's because we have 20 million new people living in this country, and they only need a place to live.
Absolutely.
So that's just another side.
That immigration is, you're right, that immigration is causing us problems in things like, things like inflation. Yeah. It's driving costs through the roof. They go together. It's all paid for by the government. So it's all paid for by the government. So it's costing us a fortune. It's causing inflation and lots of other problems. And it's so bad to our people. I mean, look at Springfield, where 30,000 illegal immigrants are dropped. And they may have done it through a certain little trick, but they are illegal immigrants as far as I'm concerned. They're destroying the town. They're destroying they'll end up destroying the state. Yeah. We cannot let this happen. This is the worst president and vice president in the history of our country.
If you've been listening to the NEWSMAX Daily, you know I've been saying all along that the border and immigration is by far the number one issue. 7, 8, 9 months ago, I said all Trump has to do at his rallies is keep showing the videos of the border, right? Come out with, God bless America, his opening, Great American Patriots in whatever city, show that video, boom. It's like, okay, thank you. And then they spoke about the economy.
Kamala and Joe are bragging that this economy here in the United States is the hottest in the world. They say our inflation is lower than other countries. How do you respond to that as their position?
Well, it's so ridiculous. First of all, the economy is not good. The only thing good is the stock market. And it seems that every time I go up in the polls, that's where the stock market's going. You have some of the top stock analysts saying that the reason the stock market's good is they think we're going to be elected. I'm going to be elected. And interestingly, we are leading very substantially in a lot of these polls. And, I can understand that. But a lot of them are saying that the market is actually terrible for people. The inflation is a disaster. The damage is done. When they say it's going down, it's going down. It's not going down. It's sort of getting even, but prices haven't come down. Right. That damage on groceries, on cars, on everything has been done. And we've got to get it down. Oil is too high. Energy is too high. But we've had probably 50 or 60%. They like to say 20%. But when you add everything in, as an example, interest rates from 2% to 10%. And really, you can't get the money at 10%, so it doesn't matter. The damage has been done, and we have to do something to get it down. The economy's been terrible, but what's really been terrible is the inflation. Yeah. The pain that inflation has inflicted on this economy is just record-setting terrible.
And they keep blaming. The blame always seems to go on her end to corporate price fixing and vilifying the corporations in this country, the companies in this country. And when asked how she's going to pay for the agenda last night on 60 Minutes, she just keeps saying she's going to tax the rich. Even Bill Whitaker on 60 Minutes is saying, well, we live in the real world. How are you really going to do that?
Well, you don't tax the rich because the rich are going to look. The rich pay most of the tax in the country, first of all. People hate to say it. They hate to hear it. But you take a certain very small percentage, and most of the tax is paid by the rich. But the problem that she has is she's going to the communist method. Take all incentive. And you know what the rich do and the corporations do? They leave the country and they go to another country that's more friendly from a tax standpoint and other standpoints like a regulation standpoint. Yeah. Her agenda will bring us in to a 1929-style depression. and it's guaranteed. She has no idea what she's doing. She answers questions like a child, like a first grader would answer. There is absolutely something wrong with her. We had 4 years of it, and we can't have another 4 years.
The 45th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, blasting Vice President Harris on Rob Schmitt tonight. For more on the Vice President and the race for the White House, we go to the inaugural episode, the debut of the new show, Finnerty, with our old friend Rob Finnerty, now at 8 o'clock Eastern, 8 p.m. Eastern.
Well, good evening. Welcome into Finnerty. I'm Rob Finnerty. I'm grateful to be here with you tonight. I want this to be a place where you can come for information that you trust every single night. And what a time to launch a brand new show. All right, so 28 days from the election, 4 weeks to the day, and I feel like we hear this every 4 years. This is going to be the most important election of our lifetimes, but this time it actually is, certainly for me, and that's not hyperbole. What happens in 28 short days will impact everything for generations. Kids, your grandkids, their children. This is not Clinton Dole 1996 or Bush Dukakis 1988 or even Ford versus Carter. So tonight, Finnerty begins. For those who might not know me or be familiar with me, I've hosted the morning show here at NEWSMAX for the last 4 years. I'm here fighting for you. And I promise you that between tonight and November the 5th, we're going to follow this race. Donald J. Trump, a former president, with a following the likes of which we've never seen in modern politics versus a historic first. The first female vice president in Kamala Harris, but maybe more importantly, she's also historic because not a soul on earth has ever voted for her to be president. Not in 2020, certainly not in 2024. No one's ever voted for Kamala in a primary. She's never won a delegate. But despite that, many Americans, millions in fact, are going to vote for this woman in 28 days. And they have no idea what she stands for or what she plans to actually do if she's elected. And that's where I want to start. That's where I want to start this very first night of Finnerty, with the election, because there's so much at stake. And it turns out that even Kamala is a little bit confused about the whole we like to vote for candidates here in America thing.
A quarter of registered voters still say they don't know you. They don't know what makes you tick. And why do you think that is? What's the disconnect?
It's an election, Bill. And I take it seriously that I have to earn everyone's vote. This is an election for President of the United States. No one should be able to take for granted that they can just declare themselves a candidate and automatically receive support. You have to earn it. And that's what I intend to do.
Okay, so earn it, says the woman that was appointed, not elected. All right, she is an appointed nominee, not an elected nominee. I don't know what that means. I don't think the American people do either.
They say that the reason so many voters don't know you is that you have changed your position on so many things. You were against fracking, now you're for it. You supported looser immigration policies, now you're tightening them up. You were for Medicare for all, now you're not. So many that people don't truly know what you believe or what you stand for. And I know you've heard that.
In the last 4 years, I have been Vice President of the United States. And I have been traveling our country. And I have been listening to folks.
All right, so here we are. We're a month away from the election. We have two candidates, one that everyone knows with a record that we all remember, and another in Kamala Harris, who is doing something right now that I've never seen before. She's actively campaigning against her own bad policies. Every day, it's no taxes on tips. Let's close the border. We need to bring prices down. And my favorite, let's turn the page.
I think people are exhausted.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they're exhausted with the lies. They're exhausted with the selfishness. They're exhausted with the attempt to divide us as Americans. Yes. And they're ready to turn the page and chart a new way forward.
Yes.
And I feel very optimistic about that.
That is why I believe in my soul and heart the American people are ready to turn the page.
Okay, so we're going to get into this in just a moment, but Kamala wants to turn the page, but at the same time, she can't explain how she would turn the page or do anything differently from what Joe Biden has done for the last 4 years, which is also very confusing and another flip-flop.
Well, if anything, would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
That is it right there. There is not a thing I would have done different, and I have been a part of most of the decisions that have had an impact on the country. That is all you really need to know right there. She said it. That was from her visit with The View yesterday. I'm not sure what the next question was, but it should have been, well, why should we believe you will do anything different if you become president, right? She's owning up to all that, but everything's going to change. I mean, that should have been the follow-up question. As I mentioned, Newsmax's new show, Finnerty with Rob Finnerty, is at 8 o'clock Eastern, right between Rob Schmitt Tonight and Greg Kelly Reports. You know Newsmax's ratings have been skyrocketing, right? And will only go up more with that lineup. As Rob debuted his new show, the NHL season opened last night with the debut of the Utah Hockey Club, formerly the Phoenix Coyotes, who scored a 5-2 win over Chicago in front of a sell-out crowd in Salt Lake City. If you build it, they will come, right? Congratulations to all involved in that new organization. There are a slew of NHL games on the calendar tonight, and the MLB playoffs continue as well. On Wall Street, stock markets opened in the red with concerns over the hurricane. Today's planned events are likely going to change due to the hurricane. Donald Trump was scheduled to speak in Scranton, Pennsylvania this afternoon and then have a rally tonight in Reading. J.D. Vance has a rally in Tucson, Arizona. Vice President Harris is continuing her New York media tour, and I doubt that will change due to the weather. President Biden is delivering remarks on the hurricane and FEMA and meeting with dignitaries of Ireland at the White House. So be sure to keep up with all of the news today on Newsmax and at NEWSMAX.com. Also, make sure you're streaming on NEWSMAX Plus so you get the most complete lineup of all your favorite shows, hosts, and special guests. NEWSMAXPlus.com. Greg Kelly Reports, Rob Schmitt Tonight, Finnerty, The Record with Greta, Carl Higbee, Bianca De La Garza on Newsline, Ed Henry, Chris Salcedo, and much, much more, with expert analysis from people like Governor Mike Huckabee, Mark Halpern, Carrie Lake, Hogan Gidley, Judge Napolitano, Alan Dershowitz, and others. I'm Tony Marino. Thank you, as always, for listening to the NEWSMAX Daily. Enjoy the rest of your day. If you are in the state of Florida, be smart. Godspeed. I already know that I will not be here tomorrow. The lovely and talented Kay Smythe will be holding down the fort as I deal with the hurricane. And as always, keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the NEWSMAX app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
Hey, it's Jerry Callahan from The Callahan Show. You can listen to us every day. We react to the latest news, politics, sports, and all the madness in the world. I'll give you my opinion with a little edge, a little attitude. I'm an unapologetic right-winger, trapped behind enemy lines in deep blue Boston, so I'm used to taking on the mainstream media mob. You can hear us anywhere you get your podcast, or you can listen every day at newsmax.com/listen.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is NEWSMAX.